He's Michael Wilbon, co-host. Pardon the interruption. Mike, good morning. How are you?
Dan, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I wanted to ask you about what Steve Kerr was talking about, the whole Russell Westbrook, the next question. Now Paul George is involved in it.
Yeah.
And it feels like the NBA allowed Greg Popovich to get away with this stuff. And now the players are just saying, you know what, I don't want to answer questions, certainly to this reporter in Oklahoma, Barry Trammell. But what would you do if you're Adam Silver?
Nothing. I think the more attention called to it. I was never, you know me a long time professionally. I don't chase the crowd. I'm not chasing a guy with a group of cameras. I'm not. I mean, talking to athletes is not that important. And I talk to athletes for a living. It's not that important. And so I'm saying that Greg Popovich also, what people have to know, and you know this, Greg Popovich is in the top 1% of guys who, when not on camera or at a lectern in a very public setting, helps reporters. How many chats have you and I had with Pop on game days that might last? I mean, there are times where I've gone to his office and I might have wanted to be there 5 minutes and was there 45. So there's another whole side to Greg Popovich that people don't see on television because he doesn't want to, whatever the game is.
Yeah.
I don't care. I've had longer conversations that matter more with Greg Popovich than almost any coach in basketball.
But these players don't want to be told, you know, Russell Westbrook.
Well, don't tell them. I mean, don't tell them. Then in Russell Westbrook's case, which, by the way, this is why I have so many people associated with Oklahoma City that I like and want to see advance in a playoff, any playoff. You know, going back to Billy Donovan, who I covered when he was in college, when I was covering the Big East. I mean, starting with Billy Donovan and Troy Weaver, their assistant GM, who's a Washington guy and a great guy, somebody I've known for a while, to Paul George, who now is being Westbrooked, and that's not even who Paul George is. It's not even who he is, the sweet guy, Paul George.
Yeah.
And so they're being dragged. So you know what? So what? We should have learned from pro football. Dan, most of these sound bites are garbage. Most of the quotes I see now, all people in our business understand under the age of 50 is analytics. They want to put numbers together. They don't even know how to tell a narrative half the time, how to spin one. And so you get these quotes, you get these lectern appearances. I don't need that. It's a waste of my time as a consumer of the product. So if Russell Westbrook wants to do that, and I started saying, I got turned around, I started saying, I want him out of the playoffs. Russell Westbrook. Great player, great player. I certainly have him on my second-team All-NBA ballot this year because I have Harden and Curry first-team guards. I have Westbrook and, and Damian Lillard, second-team guards. I want Westbrook out. There are plenty of people who don't say next question. Damian Lillard's one of them. There's no more enjoyable person to talk to in the NBA than Damian Lillard. I want to see him advance, and I want Westbrook out. So, you know what, pretty soon Westbrook's going to have nobody to talk to next week because his butt will be out, hopefully. And that's the way I look at that. I'm not – this whole begging people and they got to have policies. I'm not chasing guys to talk to them. It's not that important.
It's Michael Wilbon, ESPN. Pardon the interruption. By the way, we're in the same category for the Sports Emmy, Outstanding Studio Show Daily.
Haven't you won that thing enough already? Can't you let some other people have
No, not our show, Mike.
Patrick?
No, not our show. No.
Come on now.
No.
You've been hiding some Emmys. I'm not buying this. How many Emmys you got?
I had Best Studio Host, but I'm talking about, this show.
The show itself.
Yeah, this is our second nomination. Yeah. We lost to MLB Tonight last year.
Hey, you know what? Dan? They're really good. They are. So are you. But I'm just saying, MLB Tonight is something, that's something I watch. They're really good. I don't relish going up against them either.
Would you, if let's say you won, because, Tony's not going to travel to New York, but you could be there and you could go up and just say, look, we're not worthy of this. I think the Dan Patrick Show, and look, I'll do the same. This
is what I used to ask Charles to do. And somehow it changed. The categories, because Charles and Kenny and Ernie and now Shaq are not in our category anymore. But when they used to win this thing every year, we were in their category. And I would just say to Charles, or I'd be at Charles's house when we were in Arizona. I'm like, Chuck, You got like 11 of these. Enough. Can you just go up and say, I'd like my friends to have one? And
Yeah.
laugh. And actually, when we finally won one, literally the first call I got, I was informed by Barkley because I wasn't in New York. Charles called and said, "Congratulations." I go, "On what?" And I'm like, "Okay, I think I got it. We finally won."
Maybe we could go out after the ceremony. I got
that sounds pretty good.
the whole group. Hey, we'll kick it. We'll celebrate like we won.
Kick it. wait, let me ask you: Am I wrong about? You don't have to chase people. You got people who come on with you every day for years. You don't have to chase the one or two people who say, "Next question." I mean, has Russell Westbrook said anything that important in the last 4 years that you need to talk to him?
No.
No, exactly. So why? So just to chase? We're going to treat this like the prom queen? I want you to go out with me, and so even if I don't like you that much, you got to do it. There needs to be a rule.
Well, I think the NBA wants the fans to tune in after the game, and then you get to, if I was a player, I would take advantage of this. And I said this a long, long time ago, after they said, hey, to Steve Nash and Allen Iverson, clean up your act. And then they had, this dress code. And I said, you're going to get guys who are going to go in with like a Nike suit on. Like Nike will start, creating, Armani stuff. And guys will have their own brands. Dwayne Wade, then they started doing it. And that's what I would do. But I don't know if Russell Westbrook cares about his brand. It feels like he does. But then he gets there and then he just says, next question. And
but that's part of his appeal.
Yeah, maybe.
Part of his appeal is rebel.
Okay.
Right. I mean, and it's fine. I don't hold any. Again, I ain't gonna change the way I feel about Russell Westbrook's play, or when it comes to me voting on these things. I mean, I was certainly one who not only voted him for him MVP once, I think I might have done it twice. I mean, he's an all-time great player. Does that mean I need to hear him? No, it doesn't. And there's so many people in that league, Dan. There's so many people in the NBA who are complete chatterboxes who are engaged all the time. I mean, I was in Brooklyn. I mentioned I was in Brooklyn on the weekend. I mean, I couldn't have had just 2 or 3 encounters with Joel Embiid. People can dislike what he says or the way he goes about. I love it. Love him. There's so for every Westbrook and Paul George, he seems to drag along with him now. There's like 150 guys. No, I'm sorry, 200 guys who are perfectly willing after a game to engage on whatever level their personality takes it. And I care about that. There's too many guys for me to talk to about Westbrook. I had this conversation over the weekend, I think with Mr. Tony actually, about Westbrook and how Paul George is being Westbrooked. And this is not a good move for Paul George, if I'm allowed to say that. He's engaging. Paul George is great to talk to. Great. But, next question.
LeBron James's role with who's going to be the next head coach why are they interviewing people? It feels like, don't they just go to LeBron and say, LeBron, who do you want?
Dan, I think this is more a case of LeBron specifically doesn't do that. And he says, no, you guys hire who you want. You go through the process.
Yeah, but nobody believes that, Mike.
Well, he makes them do that, and then he passes judgment on it. Right? I mean, people talk about passive-aggressive. I know. Smart enough to understand what passive-aggressive means all the time. But I think in this case, that's what he does. They know. Look, they knew what they were getting. They know what they're getting with LeBron. And there's only one shortcoming in his career to me, and it's not about the number of rings. LeBron James to me is on my personal, not that it matters to anybody else, but Mount Rushmore of pro basketball. It's Russell, Magic, Jordan, and LeBron has, I guess now for me, replaced Bird, because Bird was that person for about 25 years. And the one shortcoming is LeBron hasn't been coached hard. And by the way, I know that a couple of people on that Mount Rushmore feel that way. He hasn't been coached hard. He hasn't accepted it. He didn't have it in college because he didn't go. He might not have wanted it. People say to me now, so suppose Mike Krzyzewski. I'm like, no, that ship has sailed. Not that Mike couldn't do it or wouldn't do it. It's just that Mike is going to coach LeBron hard at this point. No. I mean, I don't know that he didn't have a Chuck Daly. He didn't have a Phil Jackson. He didn't have a Doug Collins. He didn't have – he had Paul Silas for a while. How'd that go? Paul Silas will coach you hard. Right? Yeah. I mean, So he doesn't want it. He's won without it. He's not going to have it. I know players. I know all-time old guys who think that LeBron truly would have been the GOAT by miles if he had had coaching that he took to. Hard coaching. But he hasn't. And he's won, and it worked, and he's going to be a billionaire, and he can say, I'm sorry, why did I need that again? Maybe he didn't. Maybe the times have changed. How many guys get that in this AAU world we live in? But that's what could be presented. You can make the case fairly easily that that's the one flaw.
Man. Yeah, I had not heard that. I had not thought of that with LeBron, that if he had somebody who would stand up to him, what that would have done.
I hadn't either. Again, a couple of, let's just say, top 10 players all time have said that to me. And one of them during a game and said, listen, you see why it was about LeBron playing in the post 2 years ago in the finals and not doing it. And playing in the post for a couple of reasons. One, it's how you get rest when you're playing 44 minutes in a playoff game. It's also how you open up the floor for teammates when you're the best passer perhaps in the league, which LeBron is and was. And they talked about how that would have helped that team when it's lesser than, say, the Warriors in terms of just physical talent. Guys are injured, whatever. And I heard that from a couple of all-timers, and I hadn't thought of it either. Of course, that's why they think of it, because they see it. They see the game in ways that even people who observe it all the time for a living don't. That's why we tap into them. And as soon as I heard it, Dan, I was like, yep, that's right. That's right.
Hey, one thing I wanted to bring up to you, and I don't know if anybody has an answer to it. We recognize Babe Ruth and his greatness in baseball. But with Wilt Chamberlain, we go, yeah, but he averaged 50 in a season, but who was he playing against? Like, why is it that we don't give Wilt the benefit of the doubt, but we do Babe Ruth, who was playing before the sport was segregated? And what Wilt did, like, that didn't really happen. And so that, I don't know. It's weird that we value something in the 20s, but something in the 60s didn't really happen because we don't include what Wilt did.
Well, look, that's a great topic. I mean, that's so. I mean, I work with somebody who is just older than us enough, Tony, to be a Wilt guy. He's a Wilt guy, and he says exactly what you say, what you're asking about now. And I would say two things. One, Wilt didn't win enough. He won two. He didn't win enough relative to a guy he had to play against 16 times a year who won, whatever, 11.
11. Of
course, with Russ. But I think there's something else, because I grew up with a father who was a Wilt guy. But, I look at these things now, and it's not numbers. Wilt played on some great teams. People say, well, if Wilt had played with guys as great as Russ, no, that's wrong. He did.
Yeah.
Wilt played with guys. I mean, a person I've gotten to know on the phone recently, and he's one of my idols because he did play for the Bulls for a while, but he played on Wilt's 1967 championship team, is Chet Walker. Chet Walker's a Hall of Famer. Look at all the people that Wilt played with. He played with Jerry West and Elgin Baylor, for God's sake. I don't want to hear that Russell played with better players, because Tommy Heinsohn, he wasn't he wasn't as good as Elgin Baylor, even though they played essentially the same position. It's that to me is why I can't put Wilt, as much as I love everything about Wilt as a little kid, I can't put him with Russell, and I can't put him with Kareem, because he played with great players. What happened? They were up 3-1 in series on the Celtics. They were up 2-0 in series on the Celtics. They should have won more, and he was a great player. So I think that's okay to hold that accountable. It doesn't mean I don't celebrate Wilt, because you're right. When these references come up at night on whatever recap show you're watching, and either one of these guys is always Harden, most recently, joining something where the only member is Wilt. It's like, so yes, I get that, Dan. I do. It's not celebrated as much as not. The NBA doesn't have the film library that the NFL does with NFL Films. I mean, I talked to Steve Sable about that at one point. He wanted to do for the NBA what he was doing for the NFL, and the NFL blocked it.
Oh, I didn't know.
The NFL blocked the Sable family. Again, Steve Sable, I'm getting that from. But I think there's all sorts of, like, how do we not have film of something that happened in 1962 when a guy scored 100 points?
I've only seen one picture, and it's Wilt holding up a sign.
Card. You know what, Dan, real quickly, so Sonny Jurgensen not only saw it, he was at that game because they would have those NBA doubleheaders or NBA other things doubleheaders. And so the NFL had teams. And in the offseason, those guys got paid to play basketball. So Sonny was either playing for the Eagles or the Redskins in the basketball team. I don't remember which team it was. But Sonny comes out of the shower, he says, at the end of the first quarter, and Wilt has like 29. And Sonny had a ride. He was going to leave, and he says, no. I'm gonna stay and watch this guy. And so I guess I've been around enough guys of that generation who did appreciate Wilt that I don't have that blind spot in my rear view. But I think there's some. I think not winning with the great players he played with may have something to do with that.
Mike, I'll see you in New York. Thanks for joining us as always.
So winter treats, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm rooting for you.
Thank you, Mike. That's Michael Wilbon. Pardon the interruption. Brought to you by Mercedes-AMG. Be prepared for whatever comes your way. The all-new GT 4-door coupe, because life is a race. Visit your local dealership for a test drive today.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.